Hey everyone, welcome back to the Rollout. I'm Lindsay Rousseau.
And I'm Genevieve Marie. Hello and welcome. I know my hair is wet.
It's okay. It's one of those days where we're just like, you get what you get. You know what? Fuck Hollywood beauty standards. That's what I have to say.
You get this nice new lip color though. So that's, it's something. I put in an effort. In fact, I think it's better that I washed my hair than not after
Well,
doing
you
that
know what?
intense workout that I
We
did.
now know that you have good hygiene practices. So,
Oh, bless. Thank God. Thank God they know that now. So today,
we're not talking about Genevieve's hygiene.
no,
No.
wonderful though it may be.
We are going to talk about Marvel Studios' Eternals, which there's been a lot of mixed opinions on for good reason. Now that we have both digested the film, now we're going to dissect it. But now that we have digested the film, we've given it a few days to settle.
Gonna do a post-mortem on this.
Post-mortem is a good term for it. It is a very good term for it. So you know what? Let's dive in. Let's peel it off and dive into the 2 hour and 37 minutes. I think it was the Eternals. Yeah, very long.
Personally, I felt every minute of it.
Yeah.
I felt every minute of its runtime, and every time we had a new CGI battle with the very almost DC-esque looking villain creature things. Like, I thought we had kind of moved on from your generic like monster creature thing that you fight.
Yeah,
that seemed pretty dated to me personally.
Yeah, I mean the CGI, the effects themselves were not dated, but yeah, I agree. It's like
right,
characters were kind of like, oh, it's a big monster,
right? So like the villain, like the monsters that they fight, that ended up being really no issue at all.
Right,
compared to the bigger issue, which they did not let you know about. They make it this mystery. They pose it as a mystery in the beginning, and then you get information that leads up to the reveal of this mystery, which is the fact that there is basically a celestial, spoilers,
birthed. Yes, we should have said already. If you haven't seen the movie, why are you watching this?
Yeah, so go watch the movie, come back. This. If you have no intent on watching the movie and you just want to hear some people talk about it, just stay with us, or watch the movie and come back. So basically, there is a celestial being, which there are now gods. They have introduced actual god figures,
which was the name of and that was Jack Kirby's initial, when he created the Eternals way back in the day in the comics. Like, he actually created it when he was still at DC. It was actually called the New Gods, you know. So
so you've got all this lofty sort of philosophical, also theological concepts rolling through this thing.
Roman, we've got
but the major conflict is that there is a god that basically all the I'm going to refer to the Eternals as like demigods.
Right.
There is one main god that all the demigods answer to, and they have to protect Earth and make sure the population flourishes so that there is enough energy in order to open up, to birth a new celestial, a new big bad, a new big god.
You think of the Earth as an egg that eventually cracks open
into a god. And this god is supposed to, for anybody who is very confused, as I was, this god is supposed to give birth to millions, if not billions, of other life forms in the universe. Exactly. So out of the death of a planet comes new life. A lot more new life than that was on the planet that they destroy. So the moral conundrum, which is eventually what you find out that Eternals is all about, is that it's this moral issue that they are supposed to be fighting over. But you don't know this because you only get to know the answer to the mystery 3/4 of the way through. So when it comes to actually having conflict, the movie doesn't really have a main conflict
No,
up until that
it's
point.
basically family drama that's the
Yeah,
conflict for I mean, the deviants pop up here and there, but like you said, they dispatch them pretty
they
easily. And then it kind of becomes, I mean, and again, this could be why Chloe Zhao was brought in to direct, and she ended up rewriting a large part of the script. It ends up becoming a personality drama, a conflict of essentially
right.
siblings, and
It
whether
becomes
or
a
not
moral issue in
right.
which they do not have enough time to
No,
unravel and to go through all of the avenues and arguments to
yeah,
either prop up the idea of destroying the earth in order to build new life, or to defend why humanity is worth saving.
right.
And they never, as most Marvel movies do with when they deliver these high concept
Yeah,
ideas, they don't really give you an answer. They don't take a
right.
stance. That's the thing, is that they don't take a stance either way. They tell you what the characters stance is. They say that the main characters and the way that things turn out, they give you that humanity is good and it's worth saving. And I put a pin in humanity because
Yeah,
that's the only thing that they point to as far as life on Earth being
right. Yeah, like
worth
not
saving,
all
is
the other
humanity.
creatures
The
and
one,
animals.
the singular apex predator on the planet is worth saving, nothing else.
Nothing else.
Um,
Like this.
that's where they fall on, is that humanity is worth it. So they destroy the celestial that's coming out of the earth, they save the
Right.
planet. And then Icarus, very on the nose, yeets himself into the sun.
Flies too close to the sun. Yeah.
And
And there has been a lot of talk about that as well. And I know it's a very touchy subject, but there has been quite a few articles written up about, did Marvel appropriately deal with this, because this is suicide. I mean,
right,
this is exactly what this is. And now they portray it as almost heroic, but we're talking about, not a human being, but we're talking about someone taking his own life, and whether or not that
I
was
mean,
handled appropriately.
the thought had the thought when it was happening, the thought had crossed my mind, among the, like, how gauche it was that
Right. Well, and then there's always the
that it
argument,
was
if you don't see a
happening to
body,
this
is he
particular
really?
character.
Yeah, and maybe he doesn't die, maybe he comes back. But
And
this is
that's the thing, it's like he's an eternal, can that kill him? But I also, like, if you think about it, there are a bunch of other characters that basically one way or the other have committed suicide throughout the Marvel universe, Black Widow
right.
being like the biggest one. And then
Yeah.
I forget what his name
That
is
was, and then
in
the debate,
Thor
so if you
3.
are, yeah, if you're sacrificing yourself in the moment to save others, as opposed to going off, and this is where the
Just
debate has come in.
just
Yeah,
yeeting yourself into the sun because it's apparently the right thing to do,
or you didn't
is
know what
very
else. Yeah.
odd.
But the
It kind
problem with that is we didn't know enough about Icarus to know one way or the other. Because that was my
right,
biggest critique with this movie, is it's 2 hours and 37 minutes. Like everyone said, it's Avengers Endgame without any of the prequels. So it's like we're
very
given
bloated.
this handful of characters. We have no time to learn anything about them. Okay, they've known each other for centuries, but then their memories were, so it's like I don't know enough about each of these characters to really know who they are or care who they are.
Right.
So that was my biggest critique, is that you cast all of these fantastic actors and give them very little to work with, or expect the audience to make a connection to a character without giving them anything to connect to. I mean, it really seems like
Yeah.
this would have been better served as, I mean, this whole movie to me felt like, yes, this is setting up for sequels. Like the whole point of this movie is to lay the groundwork for the sequels. I honestly think with this much material, a feature film was not the right place for it. It would have been much better served as a Disney Plus series, or they needed to have done prequels that didn't throw 7,000 years worth of history into one movie and expect us to understand how did Cersei end up in a relationship with a human? How did Fastos end up married with a son? Like, we don't know.
So the only thing that I'm going to touch upon again with the Icarus thing, because I think it's kind of important, but what's troubling is that they frame the suicide as like a noble and the right thing to do because of his moral ambiguity.
Right. So there's no coming back from that. There's no forgiveness.
That in itself was problematic, and that's all I'm going to say about that. I'm not too prepared to talk about that.
No. We can put a pin in that. Just know that has been a critique that has been discussed. Right. Feel free to Google it to find out more.
So you're right, Lindsay, and that's kind of what I had an issue with, is that all these characters just seemed to be like, they seem to be very archetypal. They just seem to kind of exist and have like one thing going for them and not much else. You didn't get to learn that much about them. And the problem with that is that they're framed as gods.
Right.
And they are above or separate from humanity. And that really makes it hard to connect with them.
Even though they're trying to be part of humanity. Obviously, Cersei teaches at a university. She's dating a guy. Festus has, it's like several of the Eternals were separate, but then a couple did try to integrate into humanity.
And those were the characters that I actually liked, that I thought, you could connect with a bit more, but you still like since there's so many characters to get through, you had like 10 of them, that like you can only understand them on a very like basic surface level.
Exactly.
Like you didn't really get to know the family dynamic of Hephaestus and his son and his husband. You didn't really get to know that much about Athena and Gilgamesh's romance. You just were shown that they are in one, and that they and that he basically protects her, which
and we didn't dive into her psychosis, because that was a really interesting take, because I was like, oh, Angelina Jolie as the goddess of war, perfect. But then when they introduced the character, I was like, oh, this is like hints of Girl Interrupted going on here with the psychosis. But again, they didn't give us enough about it. They said, oh, your symptoms are indicative of this, and this is why we have our memories wiped every couple centuries.
Right.
And I was like, that was a missed opportunity right there, because I will say her performance was fantastic when we actually got to see her on screen.
I do want to dive into her character, Angelina's character, a bit more. Thena. Because I think Thena really does have the most potential for the most interesting storyline.
Totally.
However, it's hamstrung by this whole like bloated cast of characters that you barely get to know. And it really kind of it didn't bother me, but I think that they were not prepared to address a story about psychosis or mental illness of the like, because of the fact that there just wasn't enough time. So my issue with her storyline was that her psychosis, or I guess some people are saying like equating it to like Alzheimer's,
right? Like
that is what hinders her character throughout the entire movie, and that is what is causing her to have inaction, and that's what's causing her not to be able to live life and deal with the outside world. Whereas in another story, I'm going to bring up Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice. Senua has psychosis, and you play the game as her and how she deals with the world through her lens and how she sees it via her psychosis. but a lot of what allows her to be to drive forward is the way that she sees the world and the way that she can manipulate things around her in order to get through her struggle. Right. So it's like, in a way, her psychosis does hold her back. It is part of her character flaws, but it also is one of the one things that helps her through and be able to come full circle and become a full person, because she accepts who she is at the end of her narrative. Yes. Whereas Thena,
she just goes into isolation.
She just kind of like,
well, she goes into seclusion with Gilgamesh for who knows how long, does nothing for most of it.
Right. And then at the very end of the movie, we don't really see how she grapples with her issues or like the things that they give you as one of the stumbling blocks that she either has to deal with or overcome. She doesn't really do that. She just defeats a monster in a cave, and it just kind of happens. Like in the psychosis part, like even though she falls into like one of her episodes, she just kind of snaps out of it for no reason, for no, like, there's no signposting or no reason for her to be doing this, and it just seems kind of like a stroke of luck at that moment.
And that really frustrated me, because I felt like Marvel has attempted this before. For anybody who watched Legion, which I thought was a brilliant show and really dove into psychosis very well. And if you're not familiar with the story of Legion, basically he has multiple personalities. They all have different powers. And you never know if you're dealing with reality or his reality, what's going on. But they really dove into these issues of how to function when you're dealing with a mental illness. And for as much as everyone is lauding this film for its diversity and, dealing with issues that Marvel has never dealt with before, I think they really dropped the ball when it came to adequately exploring how a person can be suffering from some sort of mental illness, but how they push through and learn how to function, which is exactly what Angelina Jolie did in Girl Interrupted. Granted, her character didn't have the big story arc that, the lead characters did, but it was a story of finding strength in what could be perceived as a disability. So,
yeah, no, I agree with you. And we should now, I mean, since you mentioned it, let's talk about, the diversity and the representation and all of that, which they did, they did it pretty seamlessly. But when you have such like random surface level characters that, you don't really dive into, like, Thena was basically Wonder Woman. You had your Superman ripoff. The guy from Fantastic Beasts just reminded me of Spock. And there is a lot of like each character, like I was just pointing to them. I'm like, you're this, you're that, you're the other.
Well, that's exactly it, because we had no time to get to know them. So they had to be, something that we could instantly, grasp onto and be like, oh, he's that, she's that. Okay, now we understand who they are, because we didn't have enough time to get to know who they really were.
Right. Like Festus for me was like BT from Hunger Games, because he got like all the tech stuff, and
Sprite is essentially Peter Pan.
Sprite is Peter Pan, exactly.
And like Peter Pan had the crush on Wendy, Sprite's got the crush on Icarus, which that was a whole dropped storyline as well that they just
a whole big thing
briefly allude to and then move on.
Well, yeah, like Sprite for me, like, yeah, it's like Peter Pan, but I also called her Claudia from Interview with a Vampire.
Oh, yeah.
You just had these like very archetypal characters where I'm like, you're this, you're that, you're the other thing. Like, it doesn't really matter who you are in this movie, because you don't really show me who you are in this movie. So I'm just gonna put on character tropes. I'm just gonna fill you out myself. Like in my own mind, I'm just gonna fill your characters out. So like I applaud Disney,
Yeah.
but it's like
They
this.
tried to do too much,
It's like
I
the
think.
applause is like this.
Yeah,
Two
it's like
fingers,
they
like
tried to do too much. And again, I think where we're going to see Disney shine with dealing with these issues of diversity is going to be in She-Hulk and the Marvels and Black Panther. And
yeah.
obviously we're going to get another, we're going to get another Legends of the, oh my gosh, my brain is not functioning.
Legends of the
The
Fall.
rings, all the rings.
Legend of the Ten Rings.
Shang-Chi.
Yeah, Shang-Chi.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's where we're going to really see, these issues played out, but it's just, it was
Right.
too much. It was too much. And yes, they didn't throw it in our face and go like, look, we are diverse. No, I give them props for that.
Yeah, they didn't rub our nose in it. Although I will say that when they did introduce the gay family, I was looking at it, I'm like, why did this suddenly turn into like, I don't, one of like Armageddon or something, where they're just like showing like the all American family, like the father throwing the pigskin around with his child while the other father is like fixing the bike, and it's like the white picket fence house. And I'm just like, you're trying to make this so palatable to the people that you feel are not going to be digging this.
Which it's already been banned in those countries anyways, and the people were already blacklisting the movie before it came out. So those people aren't going to see it. So you're not.
Well, I mean, there's plenty of people in this country that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Those people probably aren't going to see the movie anyways. So, but yeah, it really was like that white picket fence moment. And
I thought that was so funny, but they did it I think they did it the same way with Hawkeye. I don't think they know how to deal with like showing actual family. Showing actual family units. Like even in this movie itself, like they all reiterate the fact that like, we're family. And I'm like, you keep saying you're all family, except you also did an oops all horny, because everybody in this family has paired off with one another at some point in their lives, or wants to pair off with one another. Family doesn't do that, but okay.
No. Yeah.
That was just something that I noticed, that like it's like when Michael Bay like either tries to make you feel like a good old American feeling, or whenever he like has a woman enter the room and it's just like male gaze, it just kind of like grabs you and pulls you out of the moment, because you're just like, this is something else. Is this a commercial? I noticed that. And I thought it was rather funny. But yes.
Yeah. And then obviously, we had Kingo, who was our Bollywood star and also our comic relief. We already touched on this, right? We did have Makari. So, we did, with the diversity that we did have with women, minorities, and, LGBTQ, we do also have our first deaf superhero in a Marvel film, in a Marvel show.
Gave her nothing to do.
Exactly. She like, and I've read articles that said, she's been interviewed and said a lot of her scenes were cut. I would like to know what they were and why, because I was like, we don't even see her till halfway through the film. And then she's literally on for like 5 seconds and she's gone. And you're just like, again, this whole, I don't know any of these characters, so why should I care about them?
She felt like the gopher, because like she's literally like the run character, like run, fetch me a thing, fetch me a this, go find a that, and like that was kind of like, dude, Icarus can
fly, like let him go do the milk run or whatever.
Right, exactly. I'm just like, okay.
Yeah, that was another missed opportunity.
That was kind of just, well, too many characters. There was just too many. Like, pick 5. I don't like have it. Cut it in half.
If you already know you're doing sequels, like there could have been another way to go about. There had to have, and I'm sure they talked about it, but I'm like, there had to have been a better way than throwing 10 characters at us who, again, unless you're the hardcore comic book nerds and have read all of the comic books, even then they've changed enough that even if you've read all the comics, you still might not understand. It was just too much. It was too much.
Yeah. There is one thing that I had thought of on my drive home that I was like, it would have been so much better if they did this, because I was thinking about like all the characters, you know, they're named after either character, you know, historical characters or characters from myth. Like you have
Right.
Gilgamesh, you have Athena, you know,
Icarus.
Icarus,
Mhm.
Circe, Phaestos, who I'm assuming is supposed to be Hephaestus.
Yeah.
You have all of these characters, and I was like thinking to myself, you know, these are larger than life mythical characters, and I love like the mythology of, you know, ancient mythology and like gods and all that, and they're fascinating. You know, these stories about these people and these gods are fascinating, but at the same time, there's been a lot of critique that these characters in particular just feel that they are cold and separate from humanity, that you can't really get to know them that well. And then my mind went to an anime that actually uses historical characters and characters from myth, and and the anime is Fate Stay Night.
Yes.
And they're all battling over the Holy Grail. Only these characters, these larger than life characters, are paired with a mage, they're humans. So they're paired with a magical human in order to fight these battles. And the dynamic between the mythical character or the god or the historical character and the human is really interesting, because the human can ground them, and you can have a lot of interesting stories and moments and discussions between these, like a seemingly normal person and say Alexander the Great is one of the characters that they used. They even have a Gilgamesh character in Fate Stay Night as well. And there are some very interesting philosophical conversations between him and his master as well. And a way that they could have grounded it was doing something like that, where you do have a piece of humanity to inject into each character. Like they can be these people that kind of like are a bit aloof and stand alone, but the actual world that they live in affects them, and they have to interact with it and grapple with it in a way that forces the humanity out of them. And you don't really get that in this movie. You get that they're living with these people.
Well, I think like Doctor Who did a really good job of doing that. And obviously Doctor Who has had decades to get this right. But one of the things that they did early on is that the Doctor, who is, I mean, she is a Time Lord, so almost a god, but they always travel with human companions, because human companions keep the Doctor grounded. And one of the most interesting story arcs we had was when we had David Tennant's Doctor, is they made a point of showing how much his character had changed because he had traveled for so long by himself. And by journeying by himself for so long, he had lost some of his humanity. And part of the story was, you know, reconnecting that. And that is why the Doctor is known as like the defender of humanity. I mean, the defender of, you know, all life forms in general, but especially the defender of Earth. And that's because he or she has been tethered to this planet for centuries because of their human companions. So I think you're absolutely right. I mean, maybe they try again, and this is where maybe if we had seen Circe's story with, you know, the people that she loved, or if we'd seen Festus's story with his husband, or if we'd seen was it Digo's story living in the Amazon jungle just amongst those people, maybe we could have gotten a better understanding. But again, we didn't get that. So
we got we got a bunch of gods acting with background characters
Uh-huh. And
on
we had
mass.
our weird
On
like
mass.
and we had our weird valet with the
Which
camera
I
following
was
everyone around.
just going to say that was the one actual relationship that seemed to kind of hit that fate stay night balance.
Yeah.
But I mean, at that point,
but there was also a
kind of
power dynamic there, and that he was very obviously his boss. I mean, obviously, yes, they were friends, but Kingo is still his boss. I mean, he's constantly referring to him, deferring to him, I should say. So there's still that kind of power dynamic going on
that
there.
Is okay, because I mean, that's how things work in the Fate series. But like, and there's also something very interesting about that, about there being a power imbalance, a power dynamic going on there, because then your character, the stronger one can learn from that. But I mean, like, they were there purely to be kind of the comic relief, which also Kingo, what the hell, dude? Like, I love that he just decided to kind of like just stay out of it. He's like, I don't want to pick a side. Goodbye, guys.
Yeah. I got my movie career going on over here. So
it was just kind of one of those things that, like, I know that they wanted to have an interesting discussion about staying neutral or about not, inaction, but it kind of just left me feeling a little bit like this is kind of a problem. Like, one way or the other, this feels like an issue as far as that keeping that character's likability.
Yes. It was almost like, I mean, I feel like they were trying to go the Witcher route with like, I am neutral.
The libertarian.
Yeah. But then it's like, but at the end of the day,
opposite of how, like, they kind of worked it in reverse, because because at the beginning, that's how Geralt is like in season 1, and then he realizes
he spends more time with people.
Right. Not the absolute opposite way around. Like, you don't like have this bullshit, like, you don't have this like, I am like, I don't want to choose. If I have to choose between the greater and the lesser evil, I'd rather not choose at all. At the very end, like, you can have that be where your character starts.
Yes.
Especially if you're positing them as a hero.
Right.
And then have them end in a place where they actually like make a moral decision about the thing that's going on. And it's weird that they had it be Kingo to have this issue in the first place,
seem like he would be the one.
He's the one who's dealt with humanity the most, who has integrated the most. Like, it's very strange. It was very strange, and especially because of that, like, as you mentioned, that power dynamic between him and his valet. Like, he knows, like, his valet has a family, and and even if he himself doesn't have one,
right,
like, you would expect him to feel empathy for this person who has basically devoted his life to him. And like, you would think that would be enough for him to take a moral stance on the issue, not just like F off and be like, nope, I'm done. I don't want to fight. I don't want to fight you guys. And it's weird. That part, like, if it just wasn't that character, I think
it might, because it would have made sense, because obviously Sprite kind of went, well, Sprite didn't go that route. She went on the exact opposite side and was like, I'm with Icarus because I love him, even though we're not going to explore that. That's cool.
We're not going to talk about dear old Claudia.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, they're like, y'all know this, and then that's kind of how it felt too. They're like, you all know this story, so Why do we have to rehash it again for you? And it's like, well, then why did you use it then? You know?
Yeah. And then, of course, there's the giant question, which we don't have probably enough time to go into. Where the hell were the Avengers? A giant face appears in the sky and nobody shows up. I mean, granted, we know,
well, a giant face
we know from
in
a
the
film
sky.
production reason why the Avengers were not in this film, because the, you know, budget and time, everything was already bloated. But it's like, we made references to the Avengers obviously early on, and I get they've been operating in the shadows, but as soon as the giant head appears in the sky and I don't know, you know, airlifts Cersei and others up into the sky to talk to them, I feel like they might make an appearance. I don't know, be like, what's up, guys? I'm Cap, or well, Cap's gone. It's like, I'm Thor. Who are you?
Yeah.
No? Okay.
Well, not even the people in the park seem to be very phazed by the giant
and
head.
I'm like, dude, Doctor Strange. Yeah, it's like Doctor Strange would have been all over this shit. Like, what the hell?
I mean,
he probably
also,
know. I mean, if anyone knows the Eternals, it's gonna be Doctor Strange. So
like, I'll relax about that because it's the end of the movie, but like the whole time that you've got these like wild, like alien monsters running around and like their final battle at the end, like it was just kind of weird that
Shield's not tracking weird plate tectonics going on in the Pacific.
Whatever.
No, okay,
it's fine, it doesn't matter.
We'll put that aside.
We have like 80 new characters that we have to deal with from this one singular movie and all the fallout that they did.
Well, to be fair, we did kill a couple of them. So, you know, that takes care of that. So we no longer have to worry about Ajax or Icarus, which is too bad because I really liked Ajax and I wish Salma Hayek's character could have had a little bit more because she was an interesting character.
Right.
But yeah, so we killed a couple. Who knows what happens to Sprite? Ajax,
possibly Icarus if
again, we didn't see the body, so yeah.
I don't know.
So I guess we'll revisit this in what, 4 years when they eventually
I suppose we're going to reap the benefits of this movie for like the next however many movies there are between their next sequel. So
well, if Disney Plus Day was any inclination, we're gonna have so many.
You're gonna get so many cameos. Like an Eternal is going to show up. At least one of them is going to show up in each new thing that you see.
You know, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, obviously, Gemma Chan was already in the MCU before she was cast in Cersei. For those of you who didn't know, she was in Captain Marvel. Her character died, and I guess Kevin Feige was like, hey, we really like you. Sorry we gave you a shitty role. Have a better role. Because she was like the last actress to audition for the role of Cersei, apparently. So
oh, well, I mean, Michelle Yeoh is also a Ravager in,
I know,
in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 at the very end there. And she's in Shang-Chi in a very big way. So we don't care about double casting anymore. Yeah.
Marvel finds the actors they like and they reuse them, which, you know what? Lots of film franchises do that. You know what? Apparently everyone's going to be a Marvel at some point. Tom Cruise is in negotiations. The other day I was like, hey, is Tom Hanks coming to the MCU? I mean, all these rumors are flying around.
Oh, speaking of, we actually didn't lose as many Eternals as we thought we did because of the end credits.
Oh, that's right. Yes. So those two post-credits.
We get 2 more.
We do, because obviously Kit Harington's character
we lost 3, we
gained
2.
A plot device in this movie, and you know he's obviously, they set him up to be coming back as, what was it, Black Knight?
Yeah.
And then yes, we have Thanos's brother.
Yeah, we lost 3 and then we gained 2. Yeah. So
and then Thanos
essentially we're down 1.
Yeah.
Eternal.
So
get ready to see a whole bunch of Eternals just showing up in end credits. Just like popping up here and there for a cameo in every single movie and Disney Plus TV show, wherever they can just like file them in so you feel a little bit more comfortable with them showing up in the next movie.
Which I would argue that's what they should have done before coming out with the movie. I don't know, like go the Defenders route, go the Avengers route. Let us know these characters. Have cameos in those one-offs before they team up, which they did in the Defenders very well, and which is one of the reasons people love them. And we're potentially getting a Daredevil reboot and others. But it's like, oh yeah, we had these characters pop up in each other's solos, so we knew who they were. But then we got their standalone, and then, well, we don't need to talk about the Defenders TV series because, you know, I have opinions on Iron Fist, as we all do. But still, we knew who the characters were before we saw the series.
Yeah. Well, so, that's all I got on the Eternals.
Yeah, that's all we got too. We want to, yeah. So let us know your thoughts in the comments. But basically, good acting, good filmmaking, totally bloated story and script, and I still don't know who these characters are.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah. I know as much about them in the beginning as I did at the end.
At the end. Yep.
So, yes.
So there you go.
2 hours, 2.5 hours. Felt exactly like 2.5 hours.
Yeah, really did. It really did.
Well, if you liked what you saw here today or any of our other stuff, please like, subscribe, ring that bell so you get notifications every time that we update. You know the spiel.
You know the spiel.
We upload every Fridays at noon, and we'd be very happy to see you here. So yeah. Do the thing.
Do the thing. Ring the bell. Ring that bell. Oh, sorry. Okay. It's been a long day. It's fine.
It's been a day.
I
also had to think about this movie.
I know.
So it was a lot for my brain to handle.
It's okay.
All right.
Thanks.
We will see you next week, guys. Bye.